VIEWTIFUL here. Welcome to another one of my top 20 countdown videos. Today's video will be about 20 games that need to be announced, but of course, only in my dreams. I titled the video Top 20 E3 Announcements because, well, E3 2016 is right around the corner. Before anyone watching outside of that window can just think of it as a top 20 must-have game sequels that will more than likely never happen. I almost forgot to mention that each game on this list is in no particular order. Enjoy. The World Ends With You. I would love to see a sequel to my favorite Nintendo DS game ever. Spoilers for my future top 20 DS games of all time. Anyway, I know a lot of fans that say The World Ends With You is complete and doesn't need a sequel, which is true. This is probably one of the most complete RPGs I played and doesn't necessarily need a sequel. But one can dream. I can see a conflict where Kitanaji reappears to take revenge on Neku and the composer, but this time, Neku no longer being alive, or maybe being the new composer. Yeah, I know it all sounds like fan fiction work, but I believe if done right, it's possible to get a great game in a sequel. Sin and Punishment. Anyone who has a Wii and didn't play either Sin and Punishment 1 or its sequel Star Successor must go out right now and buy both games as soon as possible. The first one can be found on the Virtual Console and the second one only runs you about $20 on Amazon. In my opinion, this is the best on-rail shooter series ever. To me, they're the best games on each platform. From the awesome Japanese developer made up of ex-Konami employees, Treasure is known for their on-acid action games. This game represents the company's style perfectly. Awesome bosses, awesome levels, freaking awesome music. The gameplay for each game is perfection. Sadly, a sequel isn't likely, so please let us have one more Treasure. Please! Skies of Arcadia. One of the best Dreamcast games ever made, sadly never got a follow-up. I guess the closest thing to it is Valkyria Chronicles. I just can't believe this never became a series. Out the same year as Grandia 2, Skies of Arcadia was a critical success. Now commercially I can't speak for because it did debut on the Dreamcast, then saw an upgraded version on the GameCube, but I strongly believe both consoles held back the game's success. With the massive success of the PlayStation 4, I would love to see a sequel or even a ground-up remake. TECHROMANCER. I bet there's very little people here who know of the game TECHROMANCER. Released on the Dreamcast in the year 2000 and a spiritual successor to the mech fighter Cyberbots, TECHROMANCER is a fighting game comprised of giant robots inspired by popular mecha anime. Sounds awesome, right? What makes TECHROMANCER even more awesome is that the robots are designed by the studio behind Macross. Sadly, although the game had a great fighting system, which included weapon pickups, along with insane finishers, the game pretty much was a commercial flop. I would love to see a sequel with robot designs by the Gurren Lagann team. Just the best anime ever. XENOGEARS. XenoSaga, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Chronicles X are all spiritual successors to XenoGears, I guess. But I want a direct sequel to XenoGears on the PlayStation. XenoGears is probably one of the most mature themed stories in RPG history. I know this sounds silly, but this is the first time I ever saw proof a protagonist banged out the love interest in a game. Faye is the man. Anyway, XenoGears' story and combat system was just a joy. A remake that fixes the rushed second disc would be good enough, but seeing a sequel that tells the lost, unknown story of episode 6 would be ideal. For anyone not knowing what I mean by that statement, XenoGears was planned as a 6-episode series. Being the 5th episode, XenoGears wasn't going to be restricted to just video games. I'm guessing anything before it would just be told via books or, worse, cell phone games in Japan. The only episode worth exploring as a full-fledged game would definitely be the episode no one knows about, which is episode 6. You can find more info on episodes 1 through 5 by reading the fan translation of the XenoGears Perfect Works book. Awesome read, by the way. No More Heroes. Travis Touchdown is one of my favorite leads in a video game. He looks awesome, fights like a savage, and kills just about anyone who gets in his way. I didn't really enjoy the first game due to the motion controls, but after seeing the trailers of its sequel, Desperate Struggle, I decided to give it another shot. To my surprise, the motion controls were optional. Combat was put on acid, and even the graphics are some of the best on the original Wii. But the mini-games, oh man, the mini-games are just so much fun this time around. Overall, it's a major improvement over the original. I expect the third game to be even better. If Suda51 were to someday return to No More Heroes, I want him to make it in the insane style of this entry. This time, maybe starring Travis' offspring. Shining Force 3. Before my love of Fire Emblem came to fruition, there was Shining Force 3 on the Sega Saturn. Shining Force 3 is part of the long-running Shining series. This entry was divided into 3 separate games, each game being a completely different scenario which not only included a different protagonist, but had a new point of view and a huge overarching story. Saves carry over similarly to the later released Golden Sun games. In fact, it's from the same developer, Camelot. Bad news is only the first scenario was released here in the US. The good news is the other scenarios are playable in English via fan translation. I'm not asking for a sequel, but instead, I want a ground-up remake of the entire Shining Force 3 trilogy. I'll even take a 3DS version because a PS4 game is just asking Sega for too much. Battletoads Double Dragon, the Ultimate Team. The greatest team-up in video game history. Let me make something clear. I don't want a Double Dragon game with Battletoads DLC. I want a direct sequel to the Battletoads Double Dragon game, with villains from both franchises fighting the hot Dark Queen and Shadow Master once again. One of my favorite beat-em-up games ever just needs to make a return. Playing the game today immediately takes me back to the 90s, and its style oozes that era. Maybe a sequel with old Billy and Jimmy Lee teaming up with crusty Toads would do it justice. But they have to keep the Dark Queen young and hot. Can't have a Battletoads game with an ugly Dark Queen. Sonic Adventure. Who played Sonic Adventure 2 and felt as conflicted as I did? Confliction aside, I can't deny the nostalgia I have for this game and its awesome Sonic and Shadow levels. Who can forget the pure awesome soundtrack? Why didn't we get a Sonic Adventure 3? I heard Sonic 06 is a sequel, but then again Sega said it was made to be a reboot, so I don't know who to believe because I'm never playing it. How's the music though? Anyway, if they do make a Sonic Adventure 3, I wouldn't mind seeing some other characters like Knuckles or Tails playable once more. I hated playing as anyone other than Sonic back in the day, but today, a Sonic Adventure game isn't a Sonic Adventure game without his friends playable. Just don't give us a villain story like they did in Adventure 2, please. Mega Man X. I doubt we will get a Mega Man X game in the form of Mega Man X9, because X has been out of commission for so long. Capcom is gonna have to reboot the series to gain some sort of hype behind it, especially after the releases of X7 and X8, in which I enjoyed the latter of the two quite often. I know, sue me. I don't want a new Mega Man X game to be rendered in 3D, whether it's a reboot or X9, even if it plays like a 2D game like Mighty Number 9. I want a pure 2D Mega Man X game, sprites and all. I may be pushing it by requesting that graphical style, but I believe that once Mega Man X went for the 3D look, it just wasn't the same. Sure, X7 did more than just destroy the look of the game, but X8 did try to mend those wounds. If Concept can do it with the Gunvolt games, then Capcom can sure do it with an established series such as Mega Man X. Final Fantasy Tactics. How in the hell did Square not follow up with a sequel to the first Tactics game on the PlayStation? This game is a masterpiece in the world of tactical RPGs. Now, whenever I mention to someone Final Fantasy Tactics, the first thing they think I'm referring to is either Tactics Advanced or Tactics A2. Look, those are pretty good games, great even, but in my opinion I just don't believe it holds a candle to the original. My ideal tactic game would be in the style of the original and not include judges or clans. In fact, I would love to see the Zodiac Stones too. You know what? Why does Square have to restrict the tactics games to Ivalice? If the mainline series of Final Fantasy or any other game such as Crystal Chronicles can get original worlds with each passing entry, why can't Tactics? Dump Ivalice and make a new war story similar to the 50-Year War. I'm so tired of seeing made-up tie-ins to the original with Final Fantasy XII or Tactics A2. Astro Boy, the Omega Factor. Let's make it clear that when I say Astro Boy, I am referring to the Omega Factor, also known as Astro Boy GBA. Let's never mention the PS2 release, which released the same year as this version. From the talented guys over at Treasure, this Astro Boy video game is part shoot 'em up, beat 'em up, and platformer. Platform may be a stretch, but it's the closest subgenre I can put it in. The graphics are the best found on the Game Boy Advance in my opinion, and hold up extremely well even by today's standards. Big beautiful sprites fill up the screen with little to no slowdown. I guess licensing prevented this entry from getting an HD version because it was released to go hand in hand with the 2003 anime series. With a live action movie on the way, it would be great to see Treasure shine this one up for a new target audience. Project Justice. Project Justice is the third and final entry in the Rival School series, packing a great story mode behind each game and an insane fighting system which was praised by the fighting game community. Rival Schools is one of those games that is gone but not forgotten. Capcom sure remembers it due to Batu's inclusion in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, and that was almost 10 years after the release of Project Justice. I always felt like the Rival School series catered to Street Fighter fans, especially with its long list of Shoto characters. So why didn't Capcom return to it? My guess is the Dreamcast version didn't sell too well, and Capcom decided to give it the axe. I mean, they did slap a new name on it rather than keeping the Rival Schools brand. Then again, like I said earlier, it was on the Dreamcast. Saga Frontier. Saga Frontier is a love or hate game for many old school RPG fans. The series started on the Super Famicom as the Romancing Saga, a game that was designed not to be anything like Final Fantasy with its design. I never played the Romancing Saga games as they were never released here in the US, but enter Saga Frontier on the original PlayStation, a game extremely different than any other RPG for its time. A modern setting with different planets you can fly to, including Manhattan. No traditional leveling system, non-linear story, hard as hell due to mechanics not explained anywhere in the manual or game. Plus multiple playable lead characters. The PlayStation game was so successful commercially that Square decided to make a sequel, in which had a more traditional medieval setting. It sold pretty well too. So what did Square do to follow up its success? Make Unlimited Saga. What a pile of garbage. I need a sequel to Saga Frontier, more in common with the original. Magic Knight's RAYEARTH. Based on a manga turned anime, Magic Knight's RAYEARTH follows most of the story pretty faithfully. In case you're not familiar with the series, it's about 3 cute schoolgirls transported into the magical world of Sephiroth, during a class trip at that. In this world, the girls are considered chosen ones in resurrecting rune gods, mechs that correspond to each girl's given elemental power. Hikari is fire, Umi is water, and Fu is wind. There's a turn-based RPG which I really don't care for. Then there's the one I want fully remade, the action RPG Sega Saturn version. I would compare it to a Zelda game, but honestly, there's enough here to set it apart from that series. It's one of the good licensed anime games out there. Too bad it's pretty rare. Beautiful Joe. This is as far-fetched as it gets when it comes to Dream sequels. I think the series was milked enough by Capcom to ensure a game is never happening. A TV series, a couple of crappy spin-off games, and a full-fledged sequel in just 2 years. Joe made his appearance in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which was great, but it made me cry just seeing him on the roster. Of course, the best in the series is the original. 2 was great, but Sylvia broke the game honestly. Everything was epic about the original, especially the final encounter with Captain Blue. I honestly think Capcom should just contract Platinum Games to do a 3rd entry. Stranger's Wrath. I never played the Oddworld series until I got my original Xbox. Munch's Odyssey was the first game I played, which I enjoyed thoroughly. Then when Stranger's Wrath came out of nowhere, I was completely blown away. You play a bounty hunter who has a ton of tools at his disposal to either eliminate or capture his targets. Capturing your targets nets you more benefits, such as more moolah, aka money, and killing them brings down the bounty. Using a mixture of stealth and offense will help in capturing the long list of outlaws without killing them. But I killed them all. It's a shame that Oddworld Inhabitants hasn't released a new game in their series since this entry. Chronicles of Riddick. Considered to be one of the best, if not the best, movie tie-in game ever, Escape from Butcher Bay made the Chronicles of Riddick movie look like pure garbage. Well, even without the game, the movie was pure garbage, but by comparison, it looked way worse. I loved Escape from Butcher Bay, and to my surprise, we were blessed with a sequel that included a remastered version of the first game. The sequel wasn't as great, but it was still pretty awesome. I was sure we would get another game when they announced the most recent Riddick movie, and Vin Diesel even went on record to tease some future announcements. It hasn't happened yet. Come on, Vin Diesel, just make it happen. Power Stone. The Dreamcast had probably the best Capcom fighting game lineup ever. TECHROMANCER, Plasma Sword, Marvel vs. Capcom, Street Fighter 3, and who can forget the awesome Power Stone series? Capcom can, because they threw this wonderful game under the bus by releasing a collection of both games on the PSP. Now both games are worth playing, just don't do it on the PSP. I can never decide which entry I love more out of the two. Both games are different beasts altogether because the first game is a one-on-one arena fighter. The sequel is a 4-player party game where chaos is unleashed in every match as each player tries their best to survive the danger from bosses, submarines firing at each other, and much more. My ideal revival would be one that includes both styles of play. Just make sure to add Wang Tang in the game if you're listening, Capcom. Chrono Trigger. I say this a lot, but this is probably the greatest RPG of all time. Definitely the best on the Super Nintendo in my opinion. Chrono Cross is tough to judge because I didn't play it as much and the characterization is just too indirect for my taste. Character development just wasn't there like it was with Chrono Trigger. I still don't think it was a bad game and I might end up doing a review for it in the future. For those hoping Chrono Cross was more like its predecessor, imagine if Square Enix got a hold of Akira Toriyama and Level 5 to make the sequel we've been waiting for. Those saying that Chrono Cross and Radical Dreamers are the sequels to Chrono Trigger are correct due to the timeline. But let's think about this for a moment. Chrono Trigger is a time-traveling story. They can do whatever they want with it. For example, if they wanted to, they can make some sort of time paradox occur that not only creates a new threat, but also forces someone, similar to future Trunks, to go back in time and summon Chrono to save the day. Okay, look, sounds like fanfiction work, I know. But just try to fill in the blanks with whatever, because again, anything is possible in a time-traveling story. We just need Akira Toriyama on board to seal the deal. Maybe I Am Setsuna will be the proof Square needs to make Chrono Trigger 2 happen. There you have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. I have a couple of other top 20 lists. If you weren't aware, I'll leave the links in the description with annotations on screen where you can click on if you're on your computer, and some cards if you're on your mobile phone. Again, thank you for enjoying these top 20 videos. I greatly appreciate the support. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it with someone that you may think or believe will enjoy this video. Later, guys.